Ryan stood at the edge of the launch platform, staring at the glowing blue planet below. His uniform felt tight, and the weight of the mission pressed on his shoulders. He had trained for years for this moment. Every lesson, every exercise, every simulation had led to this one task. The orders were simple, but the meaning was heavy. He was sent to eliminate a child who would grow into a queen who, according to the humans, would lead a war that could destroy many worlds. He adjusted his helmet and looked at the planet again. The surface shimmered like glass in the sunlight. Strange forests stretched across valleys, and towers of crystal reached high into the sky. His target was small, fragile, and unaware of the future she carried in her blood. Ryan felt a twinge of unease. He had killed before, but never a child. The ship rumbled beneath his feet. The engines hummed as if they were alive, waiting for him to step aboard. He took a deep breath and moved forward. Every step felt heavy. Memories of training flashed in his mind. He remembered the drills where he practiced silently moving through alien terrain, blending into shadows and striking with precision. He remembered the warnings about never hesitating. Hesitation was dangerous in his line of work. Yet as the ship lifted off, Ryan's mind wandered. He thought about the people who had sent him on this mission. They had shown him data, maps, predictions. They had told him that this child would one day bring death to billions. They had told him that removing her now was an act of protection for countless lives. And he had believed them. But now, looking at the planet beneath him, he wondered if the future was as fixed as they said. The descent into the atmosphere was smooth. The ship glided through clouds of green mist, and the light from the planet's sun created long shadows across the land below. Ryan peered out the window. Strange animals moved through the forests, glowing with colors he had never seen before. Rivers of liquid light twisted through valleys, and mountains floated in the sky. The planet was alive, beautiful, and vibrant. It made him wonder if destroying one small life could undo all the wonder he saw. The landing was quiet. Ryan stepped out of the ship and felt the soft ground beneath his boots. The air smelled sweet, like flowers and rain. He could hear the chirping of creatures and the rustling of leaves. He adjusted his equipment and checked his weapons. Everything was in order. His target was close, somewhere in the forests. He would find her by nightfall. Ryan moved carefully through the trees. The plants reacted to his presence, shifting and glowing faintly. He noticed small creatures hiding in the shadows, watching him with bright eyes. He stayed calm, breathing slowly, remembering all his training. He had been here to complete a mission, to follow orders, but something in him resisted. He could not explain it. Hours passed. The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. Ryan found a clearing and crouched behind a rock. He saw a small village in the distance. The buildings were made of crystal and wood, glowing softly from inside. Children ran and played, their laughter echoing through the air. And then he saw her. A small girl with wide eyes and silver hair ran through the village square. She moved with a grace that seemed unnatural for her age. Her eyes were bright, full of curiosity and wonder. She stopped to watch a bird with shining feathers and smiled. Ryan's breath caught. This was the child he was sent to kill, and yet she seemed so innocent, so alive. He stayed hidden, watching her. She picked up a small creature from the ground, a tiny glowing insect, and let it crawl on her hand. She laughed softly when it tickled her skin. Ryan felt something stir inside him. He had expected to see a future tyrant, a dangerous queen, but all he saw was a child who knew nothing of war, nothing of destruction. Ryan's communicator buzzed softly. A voice reminded him of his orders, of the consequences if he failed. He pressed his hand to the device but did not respond. He could not bring himself. to speak. He had trained to kill, to follow orders without question, but he could not question the girl, not yet. He needed to understand her, to see if the humans' predictions were true. As night fell, Ryan found a place to observe the village. He watched the girl, Mira, as she went to her home, a glowing tower at the edge of the village. Her mother, a tall figure with gentle eyes, waited for her. Mira ran into her arms, and the mother held her close. Ryan's heart ached. He thought of all the missions he had completed, of all the lives he had taken. He had never felt this hesitation before. He stayed in the shadows, unseen and unheard. He watched the mother tuck Mira into bed. The girl looked peaceful, safe, and loved. Ryan knew he could end this in an instant, but he could not. Something inside him, a feeling he had never experienced in all his years of training, told him that he had to wait, to see more, to understand more. The night was quiet. The village slept under the soft glow of the crystal towers. Ryan sat alone, thinking. He had been sent to kill a future queen, a future threat. But for the first time, he questioned the future itself. Could one child truly determine the fate of many worlds? Or was there more to the story than the humans had told him? He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the planet surround him. The chirping of creatures, the rustling of leaves, the soft hum of the glowing towers. For the first time in his life, Ryan felt uncertainty, not fear. He felt the weight of choice, and he knew that the path ahead would not be simple. Tomorrow, he would move closer. He would learn more about Mira, and he would have to decide if he could complete the mission or if he would choose a different path. For now, he stayed in the shadows, watching, waiting, and wondering if the humans had been wrong all along. The next morning, Ryan moved carefully through the glowing forest. The light of the twin suns reflected off the leaves in shades of green and gold. Every step he took was slow, measured, and quiet. He had to remain hidden. The villagers were still asleep, and he did not want to alert anyone to his presence. His target, Mira, was somewhere nearby, and he needed to understand her world better before deciding what to do next. Ryan watched the village from a distance. The crystal towers shimmered in the sunlight, and small bridges of light connected the buildings. Strange creatures moved through the streets. Some walked on four legs, others floated in the air. All of them seemed aware of the people around them, but posed no threat. Mira's laughter rang out again as she ran through the streets. She chased one of the glowing creatures, hopping over small pools of liquid light without fear. Ryan crouched behind a large plant and studied her. She was no ordinary child. She seemed connected to the life around her. The plants bent slightly when she passed, and the creatures responded to her movements. He realized she had a unique bond with the planet, a bond that made her special, even if she was young and innocent. This bond made him pause. How could a child so small hold such influence over the living world around her? He moved closer, staying low and using the shadows of the crystal towers to hide himself. The village was alive with sound. He heard soft music from inside the buildings, the voices of children singing, and the chatter of the villagers. Mira stopped near a fountain of glowing water and knelt down to watch the fish swim. She smiled and reached into the water, letting the fish swim through her fingers. Her joy was simple, pure, and unguarded. Ryan felt a pull in his chest. He had been trained to think of her as a threat, a future ruler who would bring war. But watching her now, he saw only curiosity and kindness. He questioned the humans' predictions again. Could a child with such innocence really become the person they feared? Or was there more to the future than the data they had given him? He decided to observe for the whole day. He climbed to a higher vantage point, a floating hill that overlooked the village. From here, he could see everything. Mira played with other children, her laughter blending with the sounds of the forest. She helped a small creature stuck in the branches, guiding it down gently. She shared her food with a tiny glowing animal that followed her everywhere. Every action showed her compassion, her connection to life, and her ability to care for others. Ryan took notes silently in his device. He documented her movements, her interactions, and her bond with the creatures. The more he watched, the more he realized that the child was not a weapon. She was a being who could inspire others, who could bring hope instead of destruction. But the humans had trained him to see her as a threat. He could not ignore the conflict growing inside him. As the suns moved across the sky, Ryan saw her mother appear. She was tall and elegant, with calm eyes, and a presence that commanded respect without fear. Mira ran to her, and the mother hugged her tightly. Ryan noticed the love and trust between them. The mother spoke softly, and Mira listened, her small hands resting on her mother's arms. The bond between them was strong, unbreakable. Ryan realized that if he interfered, he would not only harm Mira, but also destroy this connection that seemed vital to her world. He watched the mother teach Mira about the creatures and plants around them. Mira listened carefully, learning how to care for the planet and its life. She asked questions, and her mother answered with patience. Ryan was impressed. He had never seen a child so eager to learn, so connected to the world around her. He wondered how such a being could be seen as dangerous in the future. Ryan's communicator buzzed again. The voice of his superiors reminded him of the mission and the consequences of failure. He pressed his hand to the device, but he did not respond. He needed more time. He needed to understand Mira better. He could not rush into a decision based on predictions and data alone. He needed to see her life, her choices, and the way she grew up. Only then could he decide if the humans were right or wrong. As night approached, Ryan found a hiding spot near the edge of the village. He watched the child as she prepared for bed. Mira placed small crystals around her room that glowed softly. She whispered good night to the creatures she had helped during the day. Ryan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never felt this way about a mission before. Killing her now would feel wrong, almost impossible. He thought about the humans who sent him. They believed in a future where Mira would be a queen who brought war, but Ryan had spent the day seeing a different story. He had seen her kindness, her intelligence, and her compassion. He began to wonder if the future could be changed. Could a child grow up without becoming a threat if she was given love, guidance, and understanding? The night was calm. Stars reflected in the pools of glowing water, and the forest hummed with life. Ryan stayed in the shadows, listening, observing, and thinking. He knew that tomorrow he would need to get even closer. He would need to understand her world, her choices, and her potential. He also knew that his decision would become more difficult with every passing moment. Ryan did not sleep that night. He sat quietly, letting the sounds of the forest surround him. The chirping of the creatures, the rustling of leaves, the soft glow of the village. He thought about what it meant to follow orders, what it meant to protect life, and what it meant to choose between duty and morality. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of choice, and he understood that the path ahead would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. Before dawn, Ryan moved closer to the village again. Mira was already awake, running through the streets and greeting the creatures around her. She had no fear, only curiosity and joy. Ryan felt a strong pull in his chest, a mix of admiration, doubt, and something he could not name. He knew the mission was not simple. It would not be completed with speed or force. He had to be careful, thoughtful, and patient. Ryan watched her from the shadows as the twin suns began to rise. Mira laughed at a small creature and held out her hand. The future seemed unclear. The humans believed in one path, but Ryan now saw many possibilities. He could follow orders and destroy this child, or he could learn, understand, and maybe protect her. The choice weighed heavily on him, but he knew one thing clearly. He could not rush. He had to know her story before deciding. The future. Ryan moved silently through the glowing forest as the twin suns rose higher in the sky. He had watched Mira for 2 full days, learning her habits, understanding her bond with the creatures, and seeing the kindness she spread in her village. Today, he planned to move closer than ever. He needed to see her up close, to understand the child he had been sent to kill. The thought made his chest tighten, but he pushed forward, careful to stay hidden among the tall, shimmering plants. Village was alive with morning activity. Mira ran through the streets, laughing, chasing a small, floating creature with wings that shone like glass. She waved at villagers who smiled and waved back. Ryan crouched on a high crystal ledge, observing. She was exactly as he had seen her before, full of curiosity, full of life. Every movement was natural, innocent, and free. It was difficult to reconcile this image with the warnings of the humans who had trained him as he watched. Mira stopped, near a fountain of liquid light. She knelt down and cupped her hands, letting the glowing water flow through them. Tiny fish swam in her hands, moving around her fingers as if they trusted her completely. Ryan could not look away. There was no malice in her eyes, no sign of ambition for war, only wonder, only curiosity, only joy. He decided it was time to approach. Carefully, he stepped from his hiding place and moved through the forest, using the shadows of the towers and the plants to remain unseen. Mira seemed unaware of his presence. She laughed at the fish, gently placing them back into the fountain one by one. The creatures of the village moved around her without fear. Ryan noticed that the small, glowing insects seemed to follow her, like they knew she was special. He moved closer, stopping behind a bush. Mira's silver hair shimmered in the morning light, and her eyes sparkled as she watched a bird with shining feathers land nearby. She reached out slowly, and the bird perched on her hand. Ryan felt a strange mixture of awe and unease. This child was nothing like the queen he had been told she would become. She was gentle, curious, and kind. The thought of harming her filled him with doubt. Suddenly, Mira turned her head. Her eyes seemed to glance toward him, though he was hidden. Ryan froze, heart racing. The child tilted her head and smiled faintly. She did not speak, but something in her gaze made him feel exposed. The creatures around her stayed close, as if sensing something in the air. Ryan realized that Mira had a presence far beyond her years. She could sense him without knowing who he was. He whispered softly to himself, barely moving his lips, "I am not here to hurt you." Mira blinked and smiled again, as if she understood. Ryan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never met a being who could reach him without words. His training told him to focus, to remain detached, to follow orders. Yet the child's simple smile made him question everything he had been taught. Mira stood and began to walk through the village streets. Ryan followed silently, careful to stay hidden. She paused at a group of small creatures that seemed lost. She knelt down, speaking softly to them in a language Ryan did not understand. The creatures responded and moved closer to her, trusting her completely. Ryan's heart ached. This was not a dangerous queen. This was a child who nurtured life, not destroyed it. As the day passed, Ryan observed Mira interact with her mother. The queen of the village had a calm presence, and Mira respected her guidance. They worked together, helping the villagers and tending to the creatures. Mira listened carefully, asked questions, and learned quickly. Ryan saw patience, intelligence, and empathy in her actions. He began to understand that this child had the potential to lead not through fear, but through care and wisdom. By afternoon, Ryan knew he needed to act carefully. He wanted to make contact without frightening her. He stepped into the sunlight, letting it reflect off the crystals around him. Mira stopped and turned, her eyes meeting his. She did not scream or run. Instead, she took a small step toward him, curiosity in her gaze. Ryan knelt slightly to appear smaller, holding out a hand slowly, showing that he meant no harm. Mira approached cautiously, her eyes never leaving his. She reached out her tiny hand, brushing against his. Ryan felt a shiver run through him. This simple gesture, a child trusting him, made him realize that he could not carry out the mission he had been sent for. The humans had predicted a future based on data, but he now saw the present, and the present was full of life, trust, and innocence. They stood together in silence for a moment. Ryan studied her face, her wide eyes full of wonder. He realized he had never seen a child so connected to the world, so attuned to life. Mira reached up and touched his cheek gently, as if testing his intentions. Ryan lowered his hand to her shoulder and nodded. He would not harm her. He could not. The sound of movement in the village caught their attention. Mira's mother appeared, walking toward them. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of Ryan, but she did not panic. Mira stepped slightly behind her, trusting her guidance. Ryan raised his hands, showing he meant no harm. The mother spoke in a soft, calm voice. Ryan did not understand the words, but he could see the tone was one of caution and curiosity. Mira's mother studied him carefully. Ryan realized he needed to communicate, to show that he was not a threat. He slowly lowered his weapons and opened his device, showing images of the village, the creatures, and Mira. He pointed to Mira and shook his head slightly, indicating he was there to observe, not harm. The mother's eyes softened slightly. She nodded, understanding that he meant no immediate danger. The day turned to evening, and Ryan stayed near the village. He watched as Mira and her mother worked together, guiding the creatures and helping the villagers. Mira's laughter rang through the streets, and Ryan felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time, he felt that he had made the right choice by holding back. He had seen the child up close, and he knew that her life mattered. She was not a weapon, not yet, not ever, if he could help it. As the twin suns began to set, Ryan found a quiet spot on a high ledge. Mira and her mother prepared for the night. Ryan reflected on the day. He had met the child, seen her kindness, and felt her trust. He had realized that the humans' predictions might not be absolute. The future was not fixed. He had a choice to make, and it was becoming clearer with every moment. Ryan stayed in the shadows, watching the village glow softly in the evening light. Mira waved to him before going inside, her smile simple and full of trust. Ryan's heart ached with a mix of relief and uncertainty. He had approached, he had made contact, and he had learned something important. The child he had been sent to kill was not a queen of destruction. She was a being full of potential, of life, and of hope. The next morning, Ryan woke before the twin suns had fully risen. The sky glowed softly in shades of pink and orange. He moved carefully through the glowing forest, feeling the weight of the choices he had made. He had met Mira, and he had seen her innocence and kindness. But he knew the humans who sent him would not be patient. They would want results, and he had already delayed the mission. The pressure was building, and danger was close. Ryan moved silently, keeping to the shadows of the giant crystal trees. He observed the village from a distance. Mira was already awake, running through the streets and greeting creatures that followed her like friends. She laughed and pointed at a small floating animal that zipped past her. Ryan smiled faintly, but his mind remained focused. He had to protect her, but he also had to be cautious. He could not reveal himself too openly. As he watched, a loud sound broke the morning calm. A sharp vibration traveled through the ground, startling the villagers and creatures alike. Mira froze, her small eyes wide with concern. Ryan's heart raced. This was not part of the peaceful morning. He scanned the sky and the horizon. In the distance, he saw a fleet of ships descending. Their dark metal glinted in the rising sunlight. They moved quickly and with purpose. A clear sign of danger, Ryan knew immediately who they were. These were humans, sent to ensure the mission was completed. They would not care about Mira's innocence or the life in this village. Their only goal was to enforce the predictions of the future. Ryan's mind raced. He had to warn Mira and her mother. He had to find a way to protect them before it was too late. He moved quickly through the village, staying low and avoiding the eyes of the flying scouts. Mira noticed him and ran toward him. "Ryan!" she called. He knelt down to appear smaller and whispered for her to follow him. She did not hesitate. The bond of trust he had built with her allowed her to understand without words. Together, they ran toward the forest, away from the village center. Mira's mother appeared at the edge of the village, her eyes scanning the sky. She understood immediately the danger approaching. "Ryan," she said firmly, her voice calm but urgent. "We must protect the child." Ryan nodded, his hands raised in agreement. Together they guided Mira into the dense forest, where the crystal trees and glowing plants could hide them from the descending fleet. The ships landed with a heavy rumble. Soldiers began to move through the village, scanning for signs of the target. Ryan stayed low, careful to remain hidden. Mira clung to him, her small hands gripping his arm. The mother stayed beside them, using her knowledge of the forest to guide them through paths that were almost invisible to outsiders. The forest seemed to respond to them. The leaves shifted slightly, the light bent around their path, and the creatures scattered. Avoiding detection, Ryan thought quickly. He had weapons, but he did not want to use them against humans if he could avoid it. He needed a plan that would protect Mira and her mother while giving them a chance to escape. He remembered the floating hills and the glowing pools of water he had seen earlier. They could use the terrain to their advantage, creating obstacles and confusion for the soldiers as they moved deeper into the forest. Mira looked up at Ryan. "Why are they coming?" she asked softly. Her voice was filled with curiosity, not fear. Ryan felt a pang in his chest. He knelt down and looked into her eyes. "They believe in a future that might not happen," he said simply. "They think you are a threat, but you are not. We will stay safe." Mira nodded, trusting him completely. The mother led them to a hidden valley, where the plants glowed brighter and the creatures moved in unusual patterns. Ryan realized that this place could be used as a shield. He positioned Mira and her mother behind large glowing rocks, while he climbed a high ledge to observe the approaching soldiers. The fleet was spreading through the village, but they had not yet noticed the hidden valley. Ryan felt a small relief, but he knew it would not last long. He watched as the humans searched, their movements precise and determined. They had scanners and devices to detect life forms, but Ryan had learned that the forest could confuse them. The glowing plants reflected the scanning signals, creating false readings. He signaled Mira and her mother to stay low and quiet. The small floating creatures moved around them, creating shadows that hid their exact location. Suddenly, a soldier approached the valley, scanning with a device. Ryan tensed. He whispered a warning to Mira and her mother. The soldier paused, sensing something unusual. Ryan realized he had to act quickly. He used a small device to create a bright flash of light, confusing the scanner and causing the soldier to retreat. The humans were cautious now, but Ryan knew they would continue searching. He needed a stronger plan. The mother spoke softly to Mira. "You are strong and clever," she said. "We must move further to a place they cannot find. Trust Ryan." Mira nodded, her small hand holding her mother's. Together, they followed. Ryan deeper into the forest, using hidden paths and avoiding open areas. The forest itself seemed to protect them, bending its light and shifting its paths to keep them safe. As the day turned to afternoon, Ryan realized they needed a longer-term solution. The humans would not leave so easily. He thought about the floating hills and the pools of glowing water. If they could reach the high ledge overlooking the village, they could see the entire fleet and plan their next move. He led Mira and her mother toward a secret path he had discovered earlier, careful to avoid detection. The journey was slow and tense. Every sound made them pause. Every movement of the plants and creatures could indicate danger. Mira stayed close to Ryan, her small hands gripping his arm. The mother guided them with calm confidence, showing Ryan that she understood the forest in ways he could not fully comprehend. Together, they formed a small team, moving carefully but steadily toward safety. By evening, they reached the high ledge. From here, they could see the village below, the fleet of ships, and the soldiers searching. Ryan studied the scene carefully. He realized that the humans would not give up easily, but the forest and the valley provided a strong defense. He began to plan. They would need to stay hidden, move quickly, and use the terrain to their advantage if they wanted to survive. Mira looked up at him with wide eyes. "Are we safe?" she asked softly. Ryan knelt down, holding her hands gently. "For now," he said, "but we must be clever and careful. They will keep coming, but we can stay ahead if we work together." Mira nodded, her trust in him unwavering. Ryan felt a sense of responsibility heavier than any mission he had faced before. As the twin suns set, casting long shadows across the forest, Ryan, Mira, and her mother prepared for the night. They would rest briefly, but their minds were alert. Danger was near, and the humans would not stop. Ryan realized that protecting Mira was not just about hiding. It was about understanding, strategy, and courage. Tomorrow would test them even more. The next morning, Ryan woke before the twin suns had fully risen. The sky glowed softly in shades of pink and orange. He moved carefully through the glowing forest, feeling the weight of the choices he had made. He had met Mira, and he had seen her innocence and kindness. But he knew the humans who sent him would not be patient. They would want results, and he had already delayed the mission. The pressure was building, and danger was close. Ryan moved silently, keeping to the shadows of the giant crystal trees. He observed the village from a distance. Mira was already awake, running through the streets and greeting creatures that followed her like friends. She laughed and pointed at a small floating animal that zipped past her. Ryan smiled faintly, but his mind remained focused. He had to protect her, but he also had to be cautious. He could not reveal himself too openly. As he watched, a loud sound broke the morning calm. A sharp vibration traveled through the ground, startling the villagers and creatures alike. Mira froze, her small eyes wide with concern. Ryan's heart raced. This was not part of the peaceful morning. He scanned the sky and the horizon. In the distance, he saw a fleet of ships descending. Their dark metal glinted in the rising sunlight. They moved quickly and with purpose. A clear sign of danger, Ryan knew immediately who they were. These were humans, sent to ensure the mission was completed. They would not care about Mira's innocence or the life in this village. Their only goal was to enforce the predictions of the future. Ryan's mind raced. He had to warn Mira and her mother. He had to find a way to protect them before it was too late. He moved quickly through the village, staying low and avoiding the eyes of the flying scouts. Mira noticed him and ran toward him. "Ryan!" she called. He knelt down to appear smaller and whispered for her to follow him. She did not hesitate. The bond of trust he had built with her allowed her to understand without words. Together, they ran toward the forest, away from the village center. Mira's mother appeared at the edge of the village, her eyes scanning the sky. She understood immediately the danger approaching. "Ryan," she said firmly, her voice calm but urgent. "We must protect the child." Ryan nodded, his hands raised in agreement. Together they guided Mira into the dense forest, where the crystal trees and glowing plants could hide them from the descending fleet. The ships landed with a heavy rumble. Soldiers began to move through the village, scanning for signs of the target. Ryan stayed low, careful to remain hidden. Mira clung to him, her small hands gripping his arm. The mother stayed beside them, using her knowledge of the forest to guide them through paths that were almost invisible to outsiders. The forest seemed to respond to them. The leaves shifted slightly, the light bent around their path, and the creatures scattered. Avoiding detection, Ryan thought quickly. He had weapons, but he did not want to use them against humans if he could avoid it. He needed a plan that would protect Mira and her mother while giving them a chance to escape. He remembered the floating hills and the glowing pools of water he had seen earlier. They could use the terrain to their advantage, creating obstacles and confusion for the soldiers as they moved deeper into the forest. Mira looked up at Ryan. "Why are they coming?" she asked softly. Her voice was filled with curiosity, not fear. Ryan felt a pang in his chest. He knelt down and looked into her eyes. "They believe in a future that might not happen," he said simply. "They think you are a threat, but you are not. We will stay safe." Mira nodded, trusting him completely. The mother led them to a hidden valley, where the plants glowed brighter and the creatures moved in unusual patterns. Ryan realized that this place could be used as a shield. He positioned Mira and her mother behind large glowing rocks, while he climbed a high ledge to observe the approaching soldiers. The fleet was spreading through the village, but they had not yet noticed the hidden valley. Ryan felt a small relief, but he knew it would not last long. He watched as the humans searched, their movements precise and determined. They had scanners and devices to detect life forms, but Ryan had learned that the forest could confuse them. The glowing plants reflected the scanning signals, creating false readings. He signaled Mira and her mother to stay low and quiet. The small floating creatures moved around them, creating shadows that hid their exact location. Suddenly, a soldier approached the valley, scanning with a device. Ryan tensed. He whispered a warning to Mira and her mother. The soldier paused, sensing something unusual. Ryan realized he had to act quickly. He used a small device to create a bright flash of light, confusing the scanner and causing the soldier to retreat. The humans were cautious now, but Ryan knew they would continue searching. He needed a stronger plan. The mother spoke softly to Mira. "You are strong and clever," she said. "We must move further to a place they cannot find. Trust Ryan." Mira nodded, her small hand holding her mother's. Together, they followed. Ryan deeper into the forest, using hidden paths and avoiding open areas. The forest itself seemed to protect them, bending its light and shifting its paths to keep them safe. As the day turned to afternoon, Ryan realized they needed a longer-term solution. The humans would not leave so easily. He thought about the floating hills and the pools of glowing water. If they could reach the high ledge overlooking the village, they could see the entire fleet and plan their next move. He led Mira and her mother toward a secret path he had discovered earlier, careful to avoid detection. The journey was slow and tense. Every sound made them pause. Every movement of the plants and creatures could indicate danger. Mira stayed close to Ryan, her small hands gripping his arm. The mother guided them with calm confidence, showing Ryan that she understood the forest in ways he could not fully comprehend. Together, they formed a small team, moving carefully but steadily toward safety. By evening, they reached the high ledge. From here, they could see the village below, the fleet of ships, and the soldiers searching. Ryan studied the scene carefully. He realized that the humans would not give up easily, but the forest and the valley provided a strong defense. He began to plan. They would need to stay hidden, move quickly, and use the terrain to their advantage if they wanted to survive. Mira looked up at him with wide eyes. "Are we safe?" she asked softly. Ryan knelt down, holding her hands gently. "For now," he said, "but we must be clever and careful. They will keep coming, but we can stay ahead if we work together." Mira nodded, her trust in him unwavering. Ryan felt a sense of responsibility heavier than any mission he had faced before. As the twin suns set, casting long shadows across the forest, Ryan, Mira, and her mother prepared for the night. They would rest briefly, but their minds were alert. Danger was near, and the humans would not stop. Ryan realized that protecting Mira was not just about hiding. It was about understanding, strategy, and courage. Tomorrow would test them even more. The night in the glowing forest was calm, but tense. Ryan, Mira, and her mother rested on a high ledge, watching the distant village where the human fleet had slowed. The first battle had ended, but Ryan knew the humans would not give up. They were clever and determined, and now they would plan new ways to capture Mira. Every sound of the forest made Ryan's senses sharp, every rustle of leaves a possible sign of danger. Mira lay close to her mother, her small hands gripping the older woman's arm. "Will they come again?" she asked softly, her voice filled with worry. Ryan looked down at her, kneeling beside them. "Yes," he said gently, "but we will be ready. We have the forest, the creatures, and each other. They cannot take you without a fight." Mira nodded, feeling a little braver, comforted by his words and presence. As the first light of dawn touched the forest, Ryan led them down from the ledge to a safer path. He wanted to stay ahead of the humans, moving deeper into territory the fleet had not explored. The forest grew denser, filled with strange, glowing plants and unusual creatures. Mira's mother guided them, recognizing paths that twisted and shifted with the light. Ryan followed closely, watching for signs of human scouts. They moved for hours, and the forest seemed to welcome them. Trees bent slightly to hide their path, and small creatures darted ahead to warn of danger. Ryan felt hope that they could stay ahead of the humans. But suddenly, the forest changed. The plants grew taller and denser, blocking sunlight and slowing their progress. A thick fog rolled in, glowing softly with strange colors. Ryan's pulse quickened. Something was wrong. He signaled Mira and her mother to stay close. The fog made it difficult to see, and every sound echoed strangely. Suddenly they heard voices, human voices, shouting and moving quickly. Ryan realized immediately that they had walked into a trap. The humans had anticipated their path and set up a capture point. The forest was no longer an ally here. The fog and trees hid dangers rather than protectors. Ryan crouched, whispering to Mira and her mother. "Stay calm. Follow my lead. Do not make any sudden moves." Mira's small hands clutched his arm, her eyes wide but trusting. Her mother nodded, understanding his plan. They moved slowly, carefully, using shadows and the glowing fog to hide themselves. Ryan's mind raced. He needed to find a way to confuse the humans and escape before they were surrounded. As they advanced cautiously, a bright flash appeared ahead. Ryan stopped immediately. He recognized the signal. It was a trap. A force field had been activated across the path, blocking their way. Humans waited beyond the barrier, their scanners scanning for life forms. Ryan thought quickly. The field was too strong to break directly. They needed another way. He looked around and noticed a narrow canyon to the side, partially hidden by fog and glowing plants. He guided Mira and her mother toward the canyon, keeping low. The humans saw them moving, but they hesitated, unsure of the hidden path. Ryan realized they were clever, but not familiar with this part of the forest. The canyon walls glowed faintly, reflecting the light of the fog and confusing human sensors. He led the group deeper into the canyon, hoping it would give them cover to escaped the trap as they moved. Creatures of the forest appeared. Small, glowing animals darted in front of the humans, creating false signals on their scanners. Ryan smiled faintly, feeling the forest help them once again. Mira watched with wide eyes. "They are helping us," she whispered. Ryan nodded. "Yes. But we must still be careful. They will not give up easily." Mira held her mother's hand tightly, feeling the courage grow inside her. The humans advanced, trying to predict Ryan's path. They fired pulses of energy into the fog, lighting it up with brief flashes. Ryan and the others moved quickly between shadows, avoiding the blasts. The mother guided Mira and Ryan through the twists of the canyon, knowing where each turn and hidden path would take them. Ryan realized her knowledge of the forest was as powerful as any weapon. Suddenly, a soldier appeared directly ahead, blocking the narrow canyon exit. Ryan froze. There was no time to retreat. He whispered to Mira and her mother, "Stay behind me." Using his device, he emitted a pulse that created an illusion in the fog, making the soldier appear to see multiple paths instead of the real one. The soldier hesitated, confused by the trick. Ryan motioned them forward, moving quickly past the distracted human. They emerged from the canyon onto a plateau high above the forest. The view stretched for miles, showing the forest below and the distant village. Ryan paused, catching his breath. Mira's mother looked at him with calm eyes. "You are clever," she said. "But they will try again. You must be ready." Ryan nodded. He knew she was right. The humans would adapt, and the next trap could be even more dangerous. Mira ran to the edge of the plateau, looking at the forest. Below, "We are safe now?" she asked, her voice filled with hope. Ryan knelt beside her. "For now," he said, "but we cannot stay here long. We must keep moving. They will search every path, every canyon. We need a plan for the next step." Mira's small face showed determination. "I will help," she said quietly. Ryan smiled. Even a child could have courage when needed. Ryan studied the plateau. There was a river nearby, glowing softly in the morning light. He had an idea. "We will use the river," he said. "It will hide us from scanners. The water moves quickly and the fog will help us disappear. We will travel along it until we reach a hidden cave I discovered earlier." Mira and her mother nodded. They trusted him completely, knowing he had kept them safe before. As they approached the river, the humans below noticed movement on the plateau. They shouted orders, trying to follow, but the high position and dense fog made it difficult. Ryan led Mira and her mother into the river, the glowing water swirling around them. They moved carefully, letting the current carry them while keeping their heads above the surface. The forest seemed to cover their escape, bending light and fog around them. Hours passed as they traveled down the river. Mira stayed close to her mother, watching the glowing water and strange creatures swimming beneath the surface. Ryan guided them, ensuring they avoided rocks and currents that could be dangerous. The humans were still searching, but they had lost track of their quarry. The first trap had failed, and Ryan knew it was only a matter of time before they tried another as night fell. They reached the hidden cave. It was small but safe, surrounded by glowing plants and crystals. Ryan led them inside, helping Mira settle down. Her mother kept watch at the entrance, ensuring they were hidden from any approaching danger. Ryan sat nearby, exhausted but relieved. They had survived another attack, another trap, but he knew the humans would continue their pursuit. Mira looked up at Ryan. "Will they find us again?" she asked softly. He smiled gently. "They may try," he said, "but we are stronger together. And we have the forest on our side." Mira nodded, feeling safe for the first time in a long while. Ryan realized that protecting her was more than fighting humans. It was about teaching courage, creating trust, and understanding the world around them. The cave glowed softly in the night, filled with the hum of life and the sound of the river outside. Ryan, Mira, and her mother rested, readying themselves for whatever came next. They had survived the trap, learned from it, and grown stronger. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but together, they were prepared to face them. The forest was alive, the creatures loyal, and their bond unbreakable. The morning light filtered through the crystals at the entrance of the hidden cave. Ryan, Mira, and her mother woke quietly, listening to the soft hum of the river outside. The forest seemed peaceful, but Ryan knew better. The humans had not given up. Their fleet was still searching, and this could be the day they tried a final attempt to capture Mira. He studied the forest through the entrance, planning the next steps carefully. Mira sat beside him, her small hands holding a glowing crystal she had found in the cave. She looked up at Ryan. "Will they come today?" she asked softly. Ryan smiled gently, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "They may," he said. "But today we will make a choice. We will decide our path, not them." Mira's mother nodded in agreement, her eyes calm and strong. She had grown even braver, guiding them both through dangers. Ryan led them out of the cave and into the forest. The trees glowed softly, the light reflecting off the river nearby. They needed a plan, one that would end the humans' pursuit without risking Mira's life. Ryan studied the area, thinking quickly. The humans would likely come from the village, following known paths. But there was one place the humans did not know. One place deep in the forest where they could hide safely and create a strong barrier. They moved quietly through the forest, the glowing plants bending slightly as if guiding them. Mira stayed close to her mother, watching the creatures darting through the undergrowth. Ryan smiled faintly. He had seen her courage grow over these days. She had learned to observe, to trust, and to stay calm even in danger. The humans had underestimated her, thinking she was just a child. They had been wrong. As they reached the hidden area, Ryan stopped. A wide clearing opened before them, filled with tall glowing trees and thick undergrowth. He signaled Mira and her mother to stay close. "This is the place," he said softly. "We can hide here and create a strong barrier. The humans will not find us easily." Mira's mother nodded, moving to help arrange the glowing plants and creatures into a protective pattern. The forest seemed alive, responding to their presence. Ryan set his devices along the perimeter, emitting pulses that would confuse any human. Scanners. The creatures moved under Mira's mother's guidance, creating illusions and obstacles. The clearing became a maze of glowing barriers and moving shadows. Ryan watched the patterns carefully, knowing this would be the final test. The humans would not give up, but here they would face something they could not control. Suddenly, a loud hum filled the air. Ryan looked up and saw the human fleet approaching from the village. Soldiers moved with precision, scanning the forest and sending signals. Ryan signaled Mira and her mother to stay hidden. The forest responded immediately, glowing trees bending to block sight lines and creating shadows. Ryan activated his devices, sending pulses that distorted the humans' sensors. Confusion spread quickly among the soldiers. The humans advanced, cautiously, unaware of the illusions surrounding them. Ryan stayed close to Mira and her mother, ready to guide them if needed. Mira watched, her eyes wide. "They cannot see us," she whispered. Ryan nodded. "Not here," he said. "The forest is with us, but we must be ready. They will not stop easily." Mira held her mother's hand tightly, feeling courage inside her. She had learned to trust the forest, the creatures, and Ryan's guidance. As the humans reached the edge of the clearing, they realized something was wrong. Paths appeared where there were none. Shadows moved unexpectedly, and glowing barriers blocked their scanners. Soldiers hesitated, unsure which direction to follow. Ryan knew this was their chance. He whispered to Mira and her mother, Now, we decide. We must leave the forest if we want to end this. They nodded, understanding the risk, but trusting him completely. Ryan led them through a narrow path, deeper into the forest. The humans tried to follow, but the illusions and glowing barriers slowed them. The creatures darted across the path, creating false signals and distractions. Ryan moved quickly, guiding Mira and her mother to a high ridge overlooking a hidden valley. From here they could see the humans below, still searching but confused and disoriented. The forest had given them the advantage. Ryan knew the humans would not stop. He realized the only way to protect Mira was to remove her from the situation entirely. He looked at her mother. "I cannot fight them all," he said quietly. "We need to find a safe place where they cannot reach her. She must be hidden until she grows strong enough to defend herself." Her mother's eyes softened. She understood the truth. Mira's safety depended on leaving the forest behind. Mira looked up at Ryan, sensing the seriousness of the moment. "Where will I go?" she asked softly. Ryan knelt beside her. "You will go to a place where you are safe, where no one can hurt you," he said. "It is not far, but it is hidden. You will stay there until you are ready to return. The forest will always be with you in spirit." Mira nodded slowly, her small face serious but trusting. Ryan prepared a small glowing device, a beacon that would guide Mira to her new sanctuary. Her mother took her hand and placed it on the device. "You are brave, Mira," she said softly. "You will grow strong and one day you will return. Remember, courage is not just fighting, but knowing when to protect yourself and those you love." Mira held her mother's hand tightly, feeling the warmth and love that gave her strength. Ryan activated the device, and a path of glowing light appeared, leading to a hidden valley deep in the mountains. "Follow this path," he said. "The forest will protect you until you are safe. I will distract the humans and lead them away. You must trust me." Mira nodded, hugging her mother tightly. "I trust you," she whispered. Her mother kissed her forehead. "We are proud of you," she said. "Go now and be safe." Mira began walking along the glowing path, her small steps careful but steady. The forest seemed to guide her, glowing brighter where the path curved and turning aside obstacles in her way. Ryan and her mother watched from the ridge as she disappeared into the hidden valley. He felt a mixture of pride and sadness. She was safe, but leaving her behind was the hardest choice he had ever made. The humans below had noticed her absence. Confused and frustrated, they tried to advance, but Ryan had prepared traps and illusions to slow them down. He moved quickly, creating diversions, leading the humans away from the valley and deeper into the forest where they could not find Mira. His devices and the forest's magic worked together, confusing and scattering the soldiers until they gave up the immediate pursuit. Ryan returned to the ridge, exhausted but determined. Mira's mother joined him, her eyes calm but filled with emotion. "She is safe," she said softly. Ryan nodded. "For now," he said. "But the future is hers to decide. We have given her a chance to grow strong and wise. That is what matters." They watched the forest below, peaceful once more, the humans gone, and the path to the hidden valley glowing faintly in the distance. As night fell, Ryan, Mira's mother, and the forest creatures rested on the ridge. The forest hummed with life, protective and loyal. Ryan knew the humans would try again someday, but Mira's life was safe. The bond between them, the forest and the creatures, had won this battle. Mira's future was no longer controlled by fear, but by courage and hope. The forest had given her a gift, and she would grow to become strong and wise. Ryan looked at the stars above. He thought of Mira, walking safely along the glowing path, protected and guided. He knew that the choices he made today would shape the future. Mira's life had been saved, and one day she would return to the world stronger than anyone could imagine. The forest glowed softly around them, a promise of safety, courage, and hope for the future. The humans were gone for now, the first battles won, and the final choice made. Mira's destiny was her own, guided by love, trust, and the courage to protect life. Ryan and her mother watched the forest, knowing that though dangers might come again, they had given her the greatest gift of all, a chance to grow strong, brave, and free.